Ni hao. Welcome very much to this EMCC masterclass for EMCC China. It's such an honor to speak for all of you. I've never been able to do so for the Chinese colleagues and coaches in the world, and I really love that you're tuning in today, and I hope to help you understand a tiny bit more on executive coaching and leadership. So, if you're ready, I am. Let's get started. The agenda for today. We're going to talk in about 4 parts. So the first part is going to be on leadership. What is leadership? What are the definitions? Because we have to speak and think on the same level with the same language. I understand that you might have a different approach or might have a different experience in this, but in order for you to follow this masterclass the whole way through, it's important to use the same definition. So I'm going to take you on that road and help you understand the quality of my thinking so that you can decide for yourself. Second thing is I want to talk about psychology. So how does the leadership brain arises and how do children develop from baby to adult, and make you understand how that works. And then specifically talk about neurotransmitters, which are very important hormonal factors in the development of both leadership and personality disorders. So it's important to understand those. And ultimately, I will all translate this into executive coaching, the profession that you might want to have or already have, and makes you my colleague. So let's do those 4 items in the upcoming 30 minutes. Very short about me. My name is Arvid and I live in the Netherlands. Compared to China, that is a tiny micro country that is barely seeable unless you have a microscope, but it's still a very a beautiful place. If you ever visit, let me know. I'll welcome you very, very much. I've been coaching since 2009. Prior to that, I was an artist manager and producer, and I toured around the world with artists. But since 2009, I started my coaching adventure in my company. And I'm certified by EMCC, ICF, and Marshall Goldsmith. I'm a supervisor and master coach, and I've written 2 books on the subject. And I give a lot of lectures on leadership and on executive coaching for over 200 at this point. And I've worked with almost 1,000 CXO leaders worldwide. I've worked in over 24 countries in the world. So I'm really honored to learn every day by all the different cultures and all the different people that I come across with and have the opportunity to work with. And that makes this, for me, the most beautiful job in the world. So let me take you in the content. I'll get into the next slide. First of all, in the presentation that Fisher and Jussi have translated so very friendly and kindly, I have used some color coding. So sometimes I use these important coach questions in between brackets. So if you're just listening to me and once in a while look at the presentation, it's not that important, and we'll make sure that you get a copy, but the important coach questions are in between brackets. So let's start. Let's dive in. First of all, the definitions that we're going to use today. And again, the disclaimer is it's my definitions, but I'm going to make sure that you understand why so that you can decide for yourself. We define 4 important titles today: leader, manager, leadership, and coach. Someone being ultimately responsible for a strategy of a collective is what I call a leader. And 3 words are really, really important. Ultimately responsible. If you have a pyramid and the CEO is at the top and we call them the leader, and below there is a manager and he says, I'm a leader too, that can never be. Why? Because if that person low in the pyramid decides something that the top CEO doesn't agree with, let's be honest, it's not going to happen, right? So leadership only works in a collective, that being a company, an organization, NGO, whatever, a family even. And the person who's ultimately responsible for the strategy of the whole collective is the person that I call the leader. And in the business world, that is the CXO, the C-suite, that is actually ultimately responsible for the strategy of the collective of the whole company. So to shorten that question, is this the big boss or not? Otherwise, you might want to coach them, but it's a different skill set and it's a different approach, because leaders are, as you know, after following this masterclass, a different kind of species. And everything I tell you today is relevant if you're coaching the leader. Because if you're working with managers, which is a psychologically different species, they are responsible for checking, measuring, and controlling a subgroup within the collective. And they create boundaries and they measure and they instruct people. But more interesting is that they are working on building reciprocal relationships. That's what a manager should do, because if he or she doesn't, it's not going to be very effective, right? So a manager should be someone who is serving other people and being in connection with them and make them want to grow, while a leader should be a strategist, which is psychologically a completely different type of person. And in my book, Rescue the Alpha Wolf, my companion Martin Appelo and I have done extensive scientific research on the 4 psychological scripts that we define. One of them is the Alpha Wolf script, one of them is the governor script, the manager script, and the inspirator script. And those are not just like a color test with some personalities that you might like. They are primal psychological scripts with primal behavior that you're actually triggering. And that is what makes a leader completely different than a manager as a personality. So if we have those definitions of leader and manager, what is leadership then? Well, leadership is showing a balance within your psychological script, so all the behavior that you're showing, being effective in the role as a leader. So leadership is about balance. So that is what you have to question yourself if you're coaching somebody on the path of leadership. Is there balance in that person's behavior? It's something that you see, hear, smell, learn in all kinds of ways. More on that later on, but try to find out, is there a balance? And coaching, and the coach, is someone who helps other people to realize behavioral and measurable change by using a structural process and specific professional competences. So in order to do that, especially in leadership, ask yourself, can I be equal to that person? You don't want to be higher up. You're not in a hierarchy like a therapist. You're definitely not lower, because if you're there, they will eat you alive. So the question is, are you able to measure this and get at the same eye level as the leader that you're trying to help? So are we equal or not? So let's start with these definitions and get into the specific traits that our leaders, our executive coaching clients show. So what do we recognize? First of all, ambition. So leaders are striving for success, and they want, if they have any result, they want to outperform that result. So it's an endless fire. And if it's a balanced leader, it's a fire. It's what I call urgency. But if they're not that well trained, or maybe some bit younger, it's almost like anger. It's like, oh, I'm going to rescue the world. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get to this point. It's like fighting. That's what you basically see. And then recognition is something that they really crave for. So leaders don't work for free. And it's not only about money, it's all about recognition. And after today, you'll understand why. Recognition can be served in 2 flavors: unconditional recognition and conditional recognition. Unconditional recognition is linked to symbiotic love. It's like the love that everybody wants to have. There are no strings attached. And conditional recognition is linked to result. And that can be in any kind of form. It can be with power, with status, with money, with sex, with all kinds of things that people crave for. And all those things create a structure of conditional recognition. And the more they crave for this and more it's visible and noticeable, more it's floating at the top end of the barrel, then you see it's not very polished. So people that are not very polished leaders, they drive in expensive cars, they show that they're rich, they show that they're important, and the more polished they get, the lesser that will be visible and the lesser it will be important in conversations. But rest assured, it will be important for them. So even if it's not about money and cars and boats anymore, there is still another form of conditional recognition in place. And for you as a coach to find out what that actually is for that person. Third is that you see a lot of charisma. So leaders are very flamboyant. They speak in a way that inspires others. They learned to work with the people that they're actually afraid for, or that they actually feel very insecure with. They learn to overcome that with a very inspiring leadership role they play. And the question is here, is it instinct or is it scripted? Is it true or not? Is it a way they learned how to communicate, which you can basically feel because there's a bit of fakeness to it? Or is it really instinctive, and have they got a specific passion, for example? Are they really fired up to create better equality in the world, for example? That could be very inspirational. But if it's scripted, you can almost always feel that. And you see that also in the company, people don't believe that leader. So the question here is it a script or is it instinctive, that charisma? And then finally, what we see in leaders is that they possess an incredible amount of energy. They are working incredible hours. They're always on. They're early awake in the morning. They're working still till late. And it's, although being very strange and unhealthy, it's like they have nuclear energy. And the question is here, is it a balanced energy? Is it that they work hard and they go to the gym and work hard, but they also have a private life and they're also able to relax? Or is it a struggle and a battle that they just need to continue? And you can see that in the way they do it. The lesser time they're able to relax and spend time with family and private time, the lesser it's balanced. And then it's an incredible negative energy to have as a leader, because it seems as your ultimate nuclear driver. But if you're not controlling it, it will kill everything in your system. You will be totally wore down in your head, but also physically you will get sick. So the connection between body and mind here is very visible in leaders that have unhealthy energy, because they will become sick quite oftenly. So if we take those four, let's go into that and see how that looks like. So what is the psychology behind the mask? Let's look at a short video clip.
Eu sou favorável à tortura, tu sabe disso.
Nós não, o povo, a sociedade brasileira não gosta de homossexual. A cultura é diferente da nossa. Agora, nós não estamos preparados ainda, no Brasil, porque nem um pai, nem você, nem eu, tem orgulho de ter um filho gay. Orgulho, prazer, fazer festa, porque apareceu um filho gay na família.
If the child is happy.
Isso, porque o filho começa a ficar meio assim, meio gayzinho, leva um couro, ele muda o comportamento dele. Tá certo?
Se seu filho se apaixonasse por uma negra, o que você faria?
Ô, Preta, eu não vou discutir promiscuidade com quem quer que seja. Eu corro esse risco que meus filhos foram muito bem educados.
Eu fui num quilombola em Eldorado Paulista. O afrodescendente mais leve lá pesava 7 arrobas. Não fazem nada. Eu acho que nem para procriadores serve mais.
Jamais isso pra você que você não merece.
Olha, eu
Se
espero que não,
é esse
senão
o
ele
papo,
olha uma boa
dá, eu te dou outra. Dá que 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 eu te dou outra.
Olha aqui,
Dá
segurança.
que eu te
Mas o
dou
que é
outra.
isso? Mas o que é isso?
Você me chamou de estuprador? Você me chamou de estuprador? Você é uma imoral.
Sai daqui.
Tá, vagabunda?
Mas o que é isso? O que é isso aqui?
So what we see here is quite disturbing, because we're looking at a president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, and well, he's running quite the company then and there, and he's incredibly crazy. Well, that's what you basically see. So even with very irrational behavior, you possibly become leader from a very large country or a large company. If people are in crisis, they tend to accept bad behavior from leaders. So the more of a crisis or a conflict there is, the more people are willing to accept very unsocial and unacceptable behavior. And if we look at leaders, then all leaders in the world have this detachment disorder. No one ever gets a pass to the board for free. You always have to struggle to fight for it. Never in the world somebody called at my door and said, "Hey Arvid, Jeff Bezos just quit his job at Amazon. Would you be willing to be the CEO there?" That's never going to happen. Never. So success in life doesn't come for free. I've learned this in my life as an artist manager, touring around the world with the most successful people. I've seen this in the sports industry, and I've seen this in the business industry. Every person in the world striving for this amount of success and this amount of recognition has some form, and that's a scale from 0 to 100%, some form of detachment disorder with some sort of outcome there, okay? So our job as coaches, as executive coaches, working with these people, with leaders, is to polish their behavior. Yeah? So they are walking in their company and they get recognition by all the people serving them, but that's not a true reflection of their self. It's basically a reflection of what they want to hear, because people are afraid and they are lower in hierarchy. So they're walking through their huge buildings, but through halls filled with mirrors. They're basically not able to correct themselves anymore because people are not giving them fair reflections of their personality. So one of the core tasks of an executive coach is actually being such a clean and what I call radically honest mirror. And radically honest, radical always sounds a bit like fundamental, but radical stems from the word radix in Latin, and radix means root. So if you look at the root of the tree or of the plant, we are working on the roots of the leader, trying to give the right energy and the right nutrition for the plant or the tree to shine and grow. But that is a very important task for us as executive coaches. So let's take a look at the stages of growing up. Well, first of all, you're in the womb of your mother, and you have everything you need 24/7, warmth, security, food, drink, safety, everything. And then the second you're born, your life basically starts in the open world. And what happens there? Well, in the first 4 years, what you really want to develop is symbiotic attachment. And that is mainly linked to your mother, and she's going to teach you what unconditional love and recognition is. And when you show your frustration as a baby because you're hungry or you have a full diaper or you have a tummy ache or whatever, cramps, you show frustration and your mother answers with love and creates trust. So frustration and trust are linked to each other in this. And if you're just a little baby, the time in between is very short. So you're crying in the crib and then your mother picks you up and caresses you or cuddles you and shows you that trust in helping you. But the older you get, so like you're 2 or 3 years old and you say, "Mommy, can I have some candy?" or whatever, your mother will delay the trust by saying, "Well, you can get some candy, but first play outside with your friends or make a puzzle, do your homework, and then you get this reward. So your frustration or your request will be answered, but the time in between will build up slowly. And that is an important one because then we build up frustration tolerance. So healthy children build up frustration tolerance. And the love and the trust you get from the parents should be adapted to your needs. So you also have situations in which the child is craving for something and there is an answer, but it's not adapted to the child needs. So the parents are not able to connect with the child and understand the child and give it what it needs. And then there's no such thing as symbiotic attachment. So for symbiotic attachment to happen, we need the attention and love to be adapted to the child. And then another important period from 11, puberty, so girls 11, boys are definitely later with it, around 12, 13, to up till 18 years, we want to learn autonomy. And that is more of an important task biologically for the father. So they learn the child how to take risks, to feel secure, and challenge parents, take risks, and be autonomous. So that is more of the father's doing. And then ultimately we become a healthy adult. So you have also the period of adolescence from 18 till 24. Well, after 25, there won't be changing much anymore. So we are able to build reciprocal relationship, we have balanced behavior, and we are aware of our own personality if we're healthy adults. So again, we have this mother with the baby in the womb, and this mother is giving birth, and this magical, beautiful child is coming out, and then what? Well, then unconditional love should be fed to the child. And symbiosis means together being one. And that is basically how it feels. And there are some things that young mothers say, like, oh, I could eat that child. Well, that's literally trying to be together one. That is what symbiosis is. But in practical sense, it's all about unconditional love. So this baby gets a lot of trust and love and cuddling, but it doesn't give anything back. It's not able to smile in the first 3 months. It can't do anything. So what you learn as a child is that who you are, whatever you do, you get trust and love, and that you don't have to do anything in return. But if we look at this symbiotic love as a soup, and I call this a primal soup, then you can eat that and it can be fed to you when you're hungry, so it's adapted to you. Or you can just get too much of a good thing. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, you can get less of it or not at all. Well, then we have disruptions in your necessity for that primal soup, for that symbiotic and unconditional love. And then the disruptions appear that I've put in this slide. And we have basically 3 variants, but the first 2 are most important for us as executive coaches. First is fearful. You got too much of symbiotic love. Basically, you're spoiled. And you learn in life that you are important. I'm important and people have to serve me. That's what you start to believe as a child. So why then is that fearful? Well, because the second you go to school at 4 or 5 year old, I don't know what it is in China exactly, but in Europe it's around 5 years old, you go to school. And then people don't think you're that special. So what you'll learn is that the outside world is completely different than your home life. And if there's a big difference between your home life and the outer world, that's extremely frightening and scaring for a child. And then we create the fearful disruption. So park that in your head. The world is scary because it's so different than home life. Either that can be because home life is beautiful and the outside world sucks, or it can be that the outside world is normal and good, but your home world is very terrible. So there are 2 variants of how to get to that point. The other one is that you're not getting any soup at all. There is no symbiotic life at all. Then what you learn in life is that I have to do things by myself. There's no one I can trust. And if I trust people, they always let me down at the end and stab me in the back. So we learn to be solo and be ourselves, by ourselves. So these two variants, and like I said, there is a third variant. We call that fearfully depressive disruption. It's a combination of both. So that's a very good example is Steve Jobs. So he was put out for adoption, so didn't get any symbiotic love at all. And then he was adopted by two people who overfed him with symbiotic love. So then you get a very complex variation. And basically what we see with these people is that they're very unreliable. They switch between behaviors. And that oftenly comes because the parents did the same thing and switched behavior as well. And that's not, we see it in the business life, but not very much. Most of those people would become entrepreneurs if they even go into business. So it's very seldom, and it's more of a pathology and unworkable in a sense that it's not very much showing up in the business world. So what are the defenses? So we have this craving from a baby who wants nothing more than symbiotic love, right? It's a very healthy want. But some children get too much of it, or they don't get it at all. So then we have these children that are disrupted. And what do? They learn how to defend themselves. So how to deal with that craving is in the fact that you're scared, so you're getting too much. You create a fearful narcissistic script. And I say script. Narcissism is oftenly regarded as a pathology, but it definitely isn't. It's a spectrum, first of all, and it's a very misunderstood spectrum. And it's currently in the DSM, the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual for psychiatrists, but it will be out in the coming version. That will take a few years, but it is basically stemming from Greek mythology and is very badly explained in many, many ways by people that are not experienced in working with people with these detachment disorders. So I'm going to try to give you a bit of an insight, but if you're working with these people, try to dive in that spectrum as much as you can. So we have two scripts that can be created by that little child. As young and as vulnerable as it is, it feels very frightened because the outside world is different than the home life, right? The anxiety is flowing through your little child brain. And then what we create is the defense script of the fearful narcissistic world. And what we do, we create our own reality. And if you're gifted and a child that is not only badly attached, but also smart, competent, creative, maybe good looking, you're able to create stories that are so interesting and so beautiful that people try to follow you and applaud you for that kind of behavior. And then you become recognized and you get applause. And that's your first shot of heroin, basically, because as heroin, also recognition is creating dopamine, and more on that later. But from that moment on as a child, you become addicted to the fact that you are able to create a world and create a reality that other people will applaud you for. And the more you are attached to other people and able to listen, the more relevant the things that you come up with are. And the more disturbed you are, the more crazy the things you come up with are. And then we have on one hand the CEO, who is effective in listening and creating something valuable for society. And we have the religious sect leader, who is completely crazy, but also inspires other people. So we have these two outer measurements on that scale, but the pattern is the same. It's the fearful narcissistic script. And then we have these children that are left alone, didn't get any symbiotic primal soup at all. Well, they become depressive narcissists scripted. So what they decide is I have to do things by myself. They work alone. They become professors. They go into sports. They work alone, basically. So they're not much seen in the business world. They are sometimes, not often, willing to work with other people, but only if they applaud them. As soon as they give any critique, they'll say fuck off. leave me alone. I don't want to work with you anymore. So they, even though they sometimes go into some sort of relationships, as soon as that relationship starts being threatened, it confirms their preconception. There you see, I cannot trust anyone. Now leave me the fuck alone. That's basically what they're doing. So those two scripts are basically defending scripts from that little child that didn't get what it deserved. So it's a defense mechanism, important to understand. And it doesn't define the personality of a leader, but it is a very important aspect to work with. So let's take a look at the brain. The visual you see is the layered brain, as we call that. One of the psychiatrists, psychologists in Europe found this out. And there are 3 layers. And basically, in evolution, the red part, the reptilian brain, is our oldest brain. We already had that when we were close to monkeys. And then we created the limbic system, which is basically responsible for emotions. And then we grew the neocortex, which is the part that defines us from, for example, animals, because we are able to logically think. So how are the differences between the 3? The reptilian brain is about instincts. It's what you often hear when people are in panic. They decide between fight, flight, fright, maybe, and freeze. The limbic system is about emotions and behavior, and the neocortex does rational thinking, but also memory and learning. But what you have to understand working with people is that the oldest brain is the quickest. And it takes the least amount of energy. So the more we go outside in the brain, the more energy we consume and the longer it takes. So, for example, you're walking in Africa on the beautiful savannah, and then there's a lion. Well, what you could do is ask if the lion is a vegetarian, because if he is so, he's not very scary for you. He's not dangerous. But the best thing would be to climb a tree first so that the lion can't catch you, and then ask the lion if he possibly could be a vegetarian. So what we tend to do first is use the reptilian brain, so our instincts in any conflict situation, and then decide how to fight, flight, or freeze. We then respond with emotions, and finally we overthink those things. But the more a situation is conflicted and asks for a quick response, the lesser we are overthinking and rationalizing what we actually do. That is an important concept to understand, especially with people that are so much instinctively defending themselves, because they tend to do more instinctively. And let's look at what happens in the brain at our neurotransmitter level. There are 5 that I'm going to address today, and I'm oversimplifying them consciously because I want to explain to you what they do. In reality, it's more complex. There are a lot more neurotransmitters, and they also interfere with each other and work with each other and have effects on each other. So let me take you through the main 5 neurotransmitters. First of all, we started with the baby in the womb, right? With the mother. Well, there it creates oxytocin. And oxytocin is awfully called the cuddling hormone. If you're born and the mother is breastfeeding, she makes a lot of oxytocin. So breastfeeding, for example, is very important for a child in the attachment. But also cuddling and responding to frustration creates this oxytocin. And it's also linked to prolactin, which is literally made by breastfeeding, but also a father creates prolactin in the first few months of a baby when the connection between the father and the mother is as good as possible. If the relationship is not that good, the father shows less oxytocin and prolactin. And what it does within the father is that it creates him to deal with lesser sleep better. He's less potent, so he's not trying to find another girlfriend or a mistress in the meantime, and he's more connected with the child. So That's basically what oxytocin does. So normal people, and you see that in the orange stripe below the normal people in the slide, you see that normal people have a high oxytocin, but leaders with a detachment disorder have a low oxytocin. And important to understand here, if as a baby you didn't get too much of oxytocin, you will never be able to grow that later in life and give that to your own children. So it's quite the thing to mess up. Then we have cortisol. Cortisol is about being stressful or relaxed. That's the inner and outer of that line. So normal people have a low cortisol and leaders have a very high cortisol. So leaders often as a child learned to deal with too much frustration and stress and not having attached parents. So they are very sensitive to stress, but also very able to deal with stress better than other people, than normal people. Then we go to dopamine, which is a very important one. It's about being happy and unhappy. Normal people have a high dopamine. Leaders have a very, very low dopamine. And the dopamine is being produced in the nucleus accumbens. That is a little walnut very close to our brain stem. So it's very part of the very primal part of our brain. And the nucleus accumbens is very powerful, but very stupid. So if you try to imagine that you win the lottery, you're able to create dopamine and feel good just by the imagination of that not real thing. But it's about feeling happy or unhappy. And people with a low dopamine are basically never satisfied and always strive to get more of a good thing. And more on that later, but basically if you crave for that dopamine and you don't get it by success, you're easily making it in a few variants, for example, by risk-taking, extreme sports, drinking, drugs, and different sexual partners. So that same part of the brain, the nucleus accumbens, is very keen on creating happiness, and it will do that in all kinds of ways. So substance abuse is a very big pitfall for leaders as well. And then very, very, very close to the dopamine is the serotonin, which basically is the line from secure to insecure. And normal people are very safe and comfortable in a situation with other people around. Leaders tend to have a low serotonin and basically feel unsafe. And trying to picture that as a dog who was beaten by his owner with a stick, they'll be very, very sensitive. And if they even hear somebody breaking off a twitch from a tree, they'll be fully ready to interact. So serotonin creates somebody who's feeling insecure and anxious, but at the same time is very sensitive and very good in understanding people and very good in reading people and reading behavior. So they're very, that's not feeling very well, but it's also a very big talent to have. And then finally, I've written down testosterone. And if we think back at that layered brain, with the first part being the reptilian brain, and the reptilian brain is about fight, flight, or freeze. Well, the higher the testosterone, the more these people go into fight mode. So a leader typically, in a conflict situation, will fight instead of freeze or flee the scene. They will go up into the conflict and fight them. So people with this leadership kind of setting in the neurotransmitters, they will show more extreme behavior and they will try to replace normal dopamine with endorphins or substance abuse. So they're very sensitive to that. That's important to know. That's all part of the nature kind of detachment disorder. So then, what do we get? What kind of people do we create with that? So what do you get as a personality when we look at these things happening? Well, first of all, there's no such thing as our true self or a defined personality. There is no true self. Personality stems from the word persona. And persona means mask. And every person in the world, you watching and me telling you this, we have different masks, different psychological scripts. Each mask is a set of behavior and thinking that we learned to adapt to specific situations. And they are triggered by specific situations and emotions. So for example, if I'm telling you this, I'm sitting here in my office with my cameras and my teleprompter and my presentations, and then I'm calm and I'm trying to tell you this story as good as possible. But if I'm driving in traffic and somebody's trying to take over there, I could be very furious. If I'm reading out one of my children at night, a bedtime story, I'm very calm and taking care of them. So there are different kinds of behavioral scripts that I have that together form who we call Arvid. But I am not one thing. I'm just this combination of scripts and combination of masks. So understand personality, persona, masks. We are not one thing. So if you decide that you want to be an executive coach or a leadership coach, I've got 3 important questions for you. Because let's see what we can do with this, right? Just watching this masterclass wouldn't help you, so you have to get interactive with it. So first of all, why would you? Why would you do this? How is your attachment? Why do you want to be linked to these people? Is it that you might want to become famous and rich as well? What's in it for you? Is it status amongst coaches? Are you thinking that executive coach is better than a behavioral or a life coach? Maybe that is why you want to do it. So first of all, find out why you want to do this, because working with these people is quite different, and it's very labor intensive, and it's very psychologically challenging. It's actually quite hard to do. So why would you? And secondly, I would ask you, why can you? Did you solve your own troubles? Were you able to deal with your own detachment issues? Were you able to become this very neutral, reflective mirror so that you are actually able to help this leader to reflect on a root level? Remember the tree, the roots in the ground. Are you able to reflect at that level and give that person what it needs? So are you preaching something that you actually understand, or are you just telling stories? And then the third question is, why would they? Because leaders don't like to be helped. They feel strong, and they're telling a story that they're actually successful and extremely strong and powerful. So why would they ask you? The only reason that leaders will get to a psychologist or a coach is because they feel pain and urgency. Those two are necessities in order for executive coaching to work. So if there's no pain or urgency, people will never change their behavior, especially these people. So understand these 3 questions for yourself. So if you're creating your business as an executive coach, as a leadership coach, what would that recipe look like that you're trying to sell? Because these people aren't very easy to coach. They're smart and they're well educated, and they all read the same things as you did. They often understand the same things as you do, knowledge-wise, but they're not able to adapt it in reality, and they're not able to change their behavior by themselves. So how would your recipe look like? So first of all, the main thing for executive coaching, for you to be able to do, is accept these people unconditionally. Because they often have this attachment disorder. We're not able to reciprocally and unconditionally connect with their parents. So the craving they have is this unconditional love. And they're replacing that by conditional success and recognition and love. But what they're craving for is this unconditional acceptance. So try not to judge, okay? Even though their behavior might not be what people accept or people like, it's not up to you to judge. So try to show and make them feel unconditionally accepted. Don't condone things that you don't like. Don't applaud them for things they do badly, but just accept what is. And then what we need in order to work with people in a business environment, which is focused on success and results, is that you need to have a system with a measurable outcome. What I, for example, do is I work with leaders for 12 months. I measure their behavior at the start and after 12 months and in between. And at the end, if they didn't change and we view this through the eyes of the people working with them, you don't have to pay me at all. So my fee is completely linked to the result of my clients, which makes it a completely transparent business deal. So I'm not sitting there with hourly rates doing things that are good for me. I basically say, I'm going to help you. Your problem is worth millions and millions, and I'll help you. And if I don't create results, you don't have to pay me. Find a way to work with a measurable outcome, because if you don't measure behavior, it won't change. If you're going on a diet and it doesn't work, it's never the fault of the scale that you're standing on. But if you don't use a scale, you probably won't lose weight, because if you're not measuring, you're not taking that process seriously. You're not taking seriously that behavioral change is extremely hard. Maybe it's one of the hardest things to do. Point 3 in the recipe would be take your time, because change doesn't happen overnight. Some coaches say, I'll sit with you for 4 or 5 sessions and then you'll become better. You won't have that result with a leader in that amount of time. They might have valuable insights or value your conversations very much, but before they change behavior, it will take typically 12 months or more. So make sure that your client understands and go for the long-term relationship with them. Point 4 in your recipe should be creating a reciprocal culture around the leader. Teach them how to communicate reciprocally. Because if you're a child, you learn around 4 or 5 years old that if you are nice to me, then I'll be nice to you. However, if you are nice to me, I'll be nice to you. That's what reciprocal communication means. But the leaders didn't have that, so they don't understand that very much. They learned how to defend themselves and take themselves as the main perspective for a situation. So we have to teach them that reciprocal culture, and I'll get back to how I do that. And 5, work on behavior and nothing else. So know-how is a very intellectual challenge. Their intellectuality, their smartness, and their knowledge is never the problem. It's never about know-how. We all know how to do it. The problem is the show-how. So you have to work with your clients on behavior and measure behavior and talk about behavior and interfere with behavior, because everything else is useless. One of the things that I just said was the reciprocity, and this system is designed by Marshall Goldsmith, a very #1 executive coach in America, and he designed the 7 steps of feed forward. First of all, feedback never works with leaders. Why? Because feedback says something about the people giving it. So if I just are asked to give feedback, I'll tell something that is irrelevant for the listener, for the person that wants to own that. And the difference with feed forward is that the leader or the person asking for feed forward first states their goal, so that everything that they gather from the conversation is intrinsically motivating them to get to a point that they decided upon. Because if I just ask you for feedback now, you could say, well, Arvid, you talk too fast or too slow. I don't like the fact that you have a brown chair. The glasses, don't do the glasses, just get lenses. All kind of things that you don't know that I care about. However, if I say, dear people and coaches in China, I want to become the best coach educator in the world. Have you got 1 or 2 suggestions? Now you know what my goal is, and the things that you give back to me will be almost always very helpful and relevant. Well, that is the system that Feed Forward is based upon. So first of all, we give people a goal. The leader gives a goal for the conversation. So I want to become a better leader, or I want to become more friendly in conversations, or I want to be less stressed, or I want to have whatever. And then they ask the people, have you got 1 or 2 suggestions? That's the question they ask. And then the second step in this process is listen. And I always say literally, shut up and listen. No talking, no responding, no nodding, nothing. Listen, write it down what people say, and then say, thank you. Thank you so much. That's the only thing they can do. And it's the hardest exercise in the world for leaders are these first 3 steps. And if you doubt that this is difficult, I'll challenge you here. Ask your spouse tonight, your partner in life, how can I be a better partner for you? Listen. Don't respond. and say thank you. Try to do it. It's very hard. And then after that, you see those two, think and respond in between the lines, is what we do together with the coach. So they gather all these feed forward suggestions, they sit with the coach, and they're going to think about it. And thinking about what people tell you is also a form of showing respect. Because if I say, have you got some suggestions? And you say, well, Arvid, I think you should do this and this and this. And I say, I tried that before. Or now I'm not going to do it. Or yeah, thanks. I'm judging what you're doing. And I'm judging what you're saying without thinking. I'm basically saying that what you're said wasn't that valuable. So taking the time to think for a leader is ultimately showing respect to people. And then we respond in a very respectful manner. So we send an email or sit down. Practically, it's almost an email to all the stakeholders around, 10 to 20 people around the leader. And then we say, thank you so much for all the feed forward from this month. We've talked about this, and this is what I'm specifically going to do. I'm going to change. What's what we're going to do in the rest of the month, and we're going to change. And then we're going to follow up. And how do we do that? We follow up by, thank you so much again for your suggestions. This is what I tried to do this month. Have you seen me do it? If you do it this way, and you do this in a cycle month by month, you'll see that people get involved in your results. You build very consciously toward a reciprocal relationship. And that is why this is one of the steps that works extremely, extremely well. So, to round up my talk a bit, because I could do this for hours, but I want to keep it a bit compact as a first introduction in this. I want to talk to you about triggers. So triggers basically are a way, I talked about the personality containing masks, and each mask is a package of software of a script of psychology and behavior, and every mask can be turned on, put on your face. And what puts on a mask on your face? A trigger. Yeah. So a trigger can be consciously putting on. So I'm getting home from a busy day. My 5-year-old comes, hey, daddy, shall we read a book? I put on my friendly daddy mask. I can put that on with myself. But in a conflict situation, for example, I'm not able to choose. It happens. So first of all, we need to find triggers in behavior. The intrinsic origin, reason to do. The behavior itself doesn't say anything. Behavior can never be narcissistic, for example. People could do bad behavior because they are suffering from a narcissistic attachment disorder, but they can also just be an ass or very frightened. So slamming the door doesn't say me anything. The question is, why did you do it and when did you decide? So as coaches, we have to slice that pie into small parts and together with your client, find the trigger. What is creating the trigger? What is putting on that mask? Is it consciously? Is it unconsciously? How close can we get to that trigger? By experimenting. And then we have to define the behavior, the software that we're clicking on if that trigger happens. So if you translate your mind into a desktop and you see all these little icons with software, then a trigger starts a package of software, and that software is behavior. So what kind of behavior are we triggering? Find that out, because it's programmed and it worked so far in your life. The reason you're doing it, because it was very effective for the largest period in your life. So don't say it's ineffective behavior. Well, it wasn't. It might be now, but it wasn't in the past. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. And then the most important thing in coaching is experimenting with new behavior. Are you able with your client to build up such a trust level that you're able to experiment together? And then you cannot unlearn behavior. So what you do is you experiment with new behavior, and if it suits you better, your mind will automatically program it as primal behavior. But we cannot unlearn old behavior. So it has to serve us better than the old behavior. And then after that, it's just a matter of practice. Practice and repeat. Showing the system that your new behavior works better will create trust within the system, will change their behavior, being more relaxed and more reciprocal, and that will create a better life for the leader and for the entire company. So very, very important to understand those triggers. this was for now the theory that I wanted to share with you, and I hope it makes a bit of sense. And I really look forward to answer all of your questions. And even if your questions are about leadership a bit outside the path that we've just talked about, feel free to ask anything you want, and I'll try to answer that as good as possible. So for now, I would say thank you so much for listening and viewing this. If you want, feel free to check and connect on LinkedIn and send me an email with your questions. Always fine. If I'm really busy, it will take a few days, but I will always be happy to answer your questions. And I have created a free leadership lessons podcast. Completely open source. You can check it on your favorite podcast app or via my website. It's in English. So we dive more into these subject matters and view them. So nothing else to say thank you, or as you probably, I hope I pronounce it correctly, say 谢谢.
Yeah, 谢谢. Thank you, Arvid. Thank you very much for your fantastic presentation. It's highly informative and inspiring. And now we have collected some questions from the audience, and now let's move on to the Q&A. As I will do the interpretation after you speak 2 sentences, I will interpret, and then we continue like this.
Very good.
好，我们非常感谢阿伟的先生刚才非常精彩的演讲，相信大家也有很多的收获，然后也有很多的问题。我们刚刚也已经收集了一些朋友的问题，那现在呢，如果大家有其他的问题的话，也可以继续在聊天框中打出来。那 Zoom 里的朋友可以直接打开你的摄像头，跟嘉宾面对面的提问互动。当然，也可以把问题打在聊天框里。好，现在是我们的问答环节，大家有问题可以提问。Okay, so the first question, I'll put it in the chat.
Very good. In English, I hope.
Yeah.
My Mandarin is still a bit rusty.
It's Mandarin, but I've translated into Chinese.
Very good.
Oh, into English, sorry. The first one. Okay. I'll read it in both English and Chinese. Yeah. The first question is, could you introduce more about the 4 psychological scripts you defined? 那我们第一个朋友刚才应该听得很仔细啊。第一个问题是，就是阿伟先生能不能具体再介绍一下他刚才提到的一个4个心理剧本？这4个心理剧本到底是怎样的 ？Yeah, please.
So, what we found is that in people in leadership, there are typically 4 packages of behavior stemming from the psychology that we could define. You want to translate in between, or do you want me to explain everything?
Yes, in between. Okay, I'll translate. 这第4个心理剧本呢，它是我们就是根据那个领导者他可能出现的，比如4个可能心理原因，然后导致的他表现出来的4种行为。
So what we saw is that there is this main script that we call the alpha wolf script, which is basically linked to the presentation of today of the attachment disorder people.
第一个心理剧本呢，它叫做领头狼剧本。这个呢，也是根据它的出现的一个叫分离障碍，然后导致的一个它的表现。
And next to the alpha wolf script, we have 3 others that are relevant for us as coaches. Mainly the governor, which is the man or woman taking care of the company or the organization when there is no stress or conflict of growth, just consolidation.
那第2种情况呢，是叫做统治者剧本。那这个剧本一般是表现为可能一个公司它的就是领导者，然后在这个组织里面呢，可能就是没有遇到什么冲突的情况，那它主要是起到一个巩固的作用。
And then if you would make a cross And on the top is the alpha wolf, and on one of the sides is the governor script. Completely across from the governor is the inspirator, who is basically somebody able to create and to inspire other people.
那第三种呢，它叫做激励者剧本。那这种激励型的领导者，他就是能够就是通过自己的行为，能够激励到他人。
And if you see this horizontal line with the governor at the one side and the inspirator at the other, you'll see that the governor should be very reciprocal in working with other people and taking care of them, while the inspirator is on the other side of not being so focused on others, and that's why that person comes up with original ideas and insights. So if you make this line a reciprocal line, on the one hand is the governor, on the other hand is the inspirator.
那这四个心理剧本呢，我们可以分别列在就是四个象限里面。那这个统治者剧本跟这个激励者剧本，他们可以就是在一个水平线上，然后就像可能一左一右这样子。那统治者剧本具有统治者心理的这个领导者，他就是往往能够在组织内部，他能够与大家形成一个互惠的关系。那激励者，相对而言与大家处于一个比较分离的状态。那这种情况，他可能就是更多的能够产生一些比较创意性的想法。
And then on the bottom of the cross, so on the top we have the alpha wolf, on the bottom we have the manager, who is basically very flexible, able to connect with people, helping them, but also balance between the leadership strategy and the people on the work floor. So they are also such, as you are doing a great job, they are translators between the strategy and the personal needs.
那还有一个第四种心理剧本叫做管理者剧本。那这种剧本呢，它的处于位置呢，可能就在这个是比较下方的位置。他扮演的角色呢就比较灵活，因为他能够与他人建立很好的关系，能够帮助他人，然后他能够在领导者的战略跟就是下面的员工之间建立一个联系。他更多的可能起到比如说像一个翻译的角色，他把这个公司的战略，然后跟大家的需求然后结合在一起。
So that's the 4 scripts, and I hope I answered the question. I wrote a whole book about it. It's in Dutch, but I hope I answered this. And in the podcast, I have more on the 4 scripts if people want to know more.
Yeah, thank you. 关于这个4个心理剧本的内容呢，其实我有专门写一本书，不过这本书呢目前是荷兰语出版的，但是我的播客就是那个播客里面对这个心理剧本有更详细的解说。那这个播客呢是免费对外开放的，然后大家需要的话可以就是跟我们要这个播客的链接，我们可以分享给大家。Thank you. And maybe I'll share the your podcast link with the audience. Yeah, so they can find more about the 4 scripts. Thank you.
Yeah, so I hope that answered the question. Have you got more questions?
Yeah, sure. Okay. The second question. What do healthy leaders look like? What traits do they have? 那第二个问题是说，健康的领导者是怎样的？然后他们具备怎么样的特征
First of all, the concept of a healthy leader is a theoretical one because it's always a struggle. And I think the word that I use now that comes up as the first answer is the balance.
那关于这个健康的领导者呢，可能这个更多的只能说从可能理论层面来讲。那比起健康的话，我更愿意用平衡，提到平衡这一词来形容他们。
So a healthy leader in this concept would be able to be both the alpha wolf and the governor, at least these 2 scripts, and have a balanced life and a balanced control over their own scripts.
那对于健康的领导者来说呢，他刚刚的四个心理剧本，它具备2种，一个是领头羊的心理剧本，还有一个是统治者的心理剧本。他呢能够就是自己能够相对平衡的去控制自己的这种4种心理剧本。
And finally, I think they should be able to adapt their behavior to the needs of the people in the collective. So that's why it's never done. It's always theoretical. You need to adapt your behavior to the needs of the collective.
那同时呢，他也能够就是将自己的行为可能与这个集体里他人的需求能够达到一个平衡，一个对应，能够就是满足他人的需求，能够可能按情况来调整自己的行为。
I hope that answers this question.
Yeah. Okay, let's see the next question.
Hello, this is Eric
Hello,
from
Eric.
Chengdu. Okay, thank you very much for giving us such an informative and insightful, beautiful talk. Actually, I was very much impressed by the first part of your presentation, particularly you give your own definition about leader and manager, leadership and coaching. So I was wondering, why do you so emphasize on the leader ultimately responsible for the strategy of the collective? I understand the collective and I understand the ultimate responsible, but I don't make it clear why only strategy. Are there something about the execution of the result or something else? So this is my first question. Thank you.
Thank you for a great question. I think IC will translate it first now.
好 ，Thank you, Arvid， 非常感谢 Arvid 刚才精彩的分享。那我对第一部分呢比较感兴趣，特别是你对这个领导者、管理者和教练领导力分别下的定义。那首先关于这个领导者的定义，因为您提到对于这个您下了一个定义，就是说这个领导者他是对一个集体的战略负最终责任的人。那我的问题是为什么是这样的一个定义呢？它还是说跟这个企业内部的它的可能其他的可能这个执行方面的问题是也有关系吗 ？Eric， 我刚的问题是这样的吗？就如果是有问题，您可以纠正。
前半部分正确，就是我比较好奇他为什么特别强调 strategy， 而没有就 setting the direction， rather than the produce the desired result or something else, right?
对，你的问题是他为什么强调这个战略，而不是其他的一些方面。Yeah, thank you, Arvid, please.
So, if I understand you correctly, thank you for the question, Eric. Imagine that you have this pyramid of a hierarchy in a system, right? And at the top, we have the leader, and the leader says, this pyramid is going to point B. That's our strategy, what we're going.
Okay.
If you have a manager lower in the company who is responsible for a part of the strategy to execute, and they say, I'm a leader, then you, by definition, create a problem because there are two options. One is that strategy of that small leader is in line with the big strategy, or it's not. And if it's not, it basically won't happen. So either wise, it's not original, so it's not their own thinking, they're just doing what they're being told, or they're wanting to do something that is in conflict with the bigger interest. And they will never be able to create a decent strategy at that level because they cannot oversee all the interest of the whole pyramid. That is why, per definition, management is completely different than leadership, because leadership has all the information and the power to create a strategy for the whole triangle.
Okay, I see your point. Thank you.
针对这个问题呢，我们刚才说了，领导者他是站在金字塔顶端的人。那比如说，他说我们公司就是要实施一个战略，比如说战略叫 B。那管理者呢，他在下面呢，他就要负责执行可能其中的一部分。管理者可能下面，比如说是下面的经理啊什么的。那如果他说啊，我是这个领导者，那他这里可能就出现一些问题，可能出现两个问题。首先第一个，因为他作为这个经理的话，你要看他的就是行为，他的实施的方式是不是与大的战略、公司总体战略相符合。如果就是不符合的话，可能就会出现一些问题，因为他没有为集体的利益考虑。 那它呢更多是承担一个就是执行的那个任务，因为就是上面它怎么就是分配这个战略，那它就在下面执行。所以它的话，如果它的第二个就是它可能对于这个战略可能与它本身的意愿想法可能有冲突，那在这种情况下，它可能出现的行为就是不那么妥当，它可能就在这个层面上就不能更好的去可能管理、控制、衡量它就是要实施的这些战略、这些方案，那这样的话就与集体的这个利益相违背。
Wow, that's a lot I don't understand. I hope I answered your question, Eric, and otherwise feel free to connect with me afterwards, and I'll always happy to set up a call and elaborate on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question.
刚才我们的 Eric 先生他也在 PPT 上留下了他的联系方式，如果刚刚大家没有的话，也可以跟我们要，就是他的邮件，大家有什么问题可以进一步跟他沟通。Okay, next question， 下一个问题。Yes, I'll put it in the chat. Here's the question. How to measure the behavior change of the leader? 那第4个问题是我们该如何衡量领导者这个行为的变化？
It's very simple. Ask the people around the leader. So you do a behavioral interviews with the people around the leader, and you repeat that after 5, 8, and 11 months. And then ask the people around the leader, did he or she actually change? If you have about a group of 20 people, it's completely relevant and seen to be true.
那这个答案呢，非常的简单，就是可以问这个领导者他周围的人，你可以在比如说我们在这个可能做教练的这个周期里，比如说期中或者期后的一个期限，你可以去对他周围的人进行一个采访，然后对他就是关于这个领导者他行为的一个变化，然后进行一个采访。这个呢是可以是非常简单也非常适用的方案。
And important here is that if you choose these 20 people, they are working on different levels with the leader. So you want some peers, you want maybe some board members, you want also the secretary of the leader to answer, and some people on the work floor. So the more diverse the range of answers is, the more credible the outcome of the behavior is.
那这个访谈呢，你可以比如说内部你可以选比如说20个人，这个样本其实已经够了。这20个人可能是这个领导者，可能他的同级别的一些高层，也可能是董事会的一些人，也可能是比如说他的秘书或者是他的下属。那这样你得到的答案呢就很多样化，然后也更可靠。Yeah, here's another question. This question, how do you find clients?
Well, not the clients find me right now. So I'm doing this for 15 years. And then if you tell your story like today or anywhere else, people know how to find you. But in the beginning, I think it's important to tell your story as a coach on what your learnings are, because you cannot help people with things that you haven't experienced yourself. And make sure that you're so specialized that people understand why they would need you and how the outcome would look. Yeah, let's translate that first. Otherwise, it's.
那这个问题呢就是你如何去找客户？那这个问题呢，就是我现在做教练呢也有就是10几年了，15年了。那在最开始的时候呢，就是比较重要的是，就是你能够向领导者讲述你自己的故事，就是你具备就是哪些可能在过去的多少年中，其实你具备了怎样的经验，你学到了什么，以及你在教练方面，然后也具备怎样的专业的知识和能力，就是你一定要展现出你的专业，这样别人才能就是确定为什么选择你。
And if you tell your story, there are so many ways of doing it. China is amazingly big. It's 100 times bigger than my country. So if I can make it work, so can you. And one of the ways is talk with people, connect with people, learn to shape your story. If they connect and they feel that you are somebody who experienced what they are still struggling with, they'll probably ask you. You don't have to sell anything.
那我想大家在就是中国的话，中国因为人口很多，市场很大，那大家可能就是找客户的方式比我多得多。那比较最基本的呢，大家一定要去就是多跟别人交流，然后去建立联系，跟别人去分享你的故事。因为当别人觉得跟你建立了联系，然后在心理上觉得就是舒适的时候呢，他会就是去然后了解可能你的经历、你的经验，然后他会来主动的问你。Yeah, thank you. 那大家还有其他的问题吗？
And this is Michelle. Yeah, thank you very much for your great sharing. I have a question about in a corporate environment, how to establish a coaching culture. So I'm an internal coach, basically facing leaders, different levels, talking to them in the formal, informal coaching programs. And people are find this is a great tool. However, when you're into their day-to-day business, they feel very challenged to adapt coaching skills because of the goal that's there.
Yeah, it's an amazing question. I think IC will translate it first, but thank you, Michelle.
那么这个问题呢，下一个问题是，就是我们如何在企业里去建立这个教练文化？因为我们内部呢也有一些教练，可能是面向就不同的高层。但是在日常就是我们的工作中，其实却有点很难的去把我们的这个教练，这个把我们的教练这个工作，然后很好的跟我们的就是公司的文化相匹配。那这种情况我们该如何怎么办？
Thank you, IC, for your amazing memory and translation skills. So Michelle asks about coaching culture, and I think in general, what's happening is that you get what you measure. So why would you have a coaching culture as a goal? I would say the first step is make people inside the company responsible for their growth and only measure and report their growth. As soon as you get to that point, they will crave for coaching because that is one of the fastest ways to grow, as we know from scientific research. So I think in the bottom line, it's all about let people score themselves, not the employer or HR. Let them be teammates, help each other, and create a culture where everybody is responsible for growth and not outcome. Sorry, Icy, for that long answer.
那这个呢，就是第一点，就是能够让大家去，就是自己能够去衡量自己所得到的东西。就首先大家一个明白，就是我们为什么要在这个企业里建立一个教练的文化，的目标是什么？那首先第一步就是你要让企业里的人，大家都能够为自己的成长负责，他能够自己去衡量自己可能获得的成长。那教练呢，其实是一个非常非常快的方式，这也是得到了这个科学研究的证实的。就他们通过这种教练方式，能够让自己快速的成长，然后并且这种成长是可以衡量的，让他们切实的看到这样的成果。
Does that answer your question, Michelle?
Yeah, partially, but the reality is sometimes the leader want to grasp the skills. They want training. For myself, a certified coach, I conduct training to them. However, in the class, they say this is too hard. I have no time to adapt or practice this. That's like I go back to your point. Yeah, that's your growth, and you are responsible for it. However, the company have the expectation there. like more leaders grab the skills, competent, and then they can do a better, engagement, inspire team to do more. Thank you.
I see. Will you translate that? Then I'll answer.
那但是呢，就是企业实际操作起来的时候是很难的，特别是要符合这个内部公司的一个期望，因为特别是让领导者去去参加各种培训，然后提升自己的这个技能，然后我们根据他们的反馈发现，他们都觉得这个很难。
So first of all, So first of all, in a class, if people say I don't have the time or the energy to make it happen, I understand, but I'm not doing it. That's the problem with all behavioral change. It's urgency and pain. If there's no pain and urgency, people won't change. Secondly, I don't think leaders should coach in a company. Just lead. That's hard enough. And ask a professional to coach. And if you really think, even as a manager, you're the person to coach, that's not true. Because for a coach, the fundamental thing you need is to be free of any other perspective or pressure. And as soon as you are working in the company, you're their boss, you are under the same umbrella of strategy, that will never be quality coaching. So I would say don't coach as a leader, but just become a good leader. That's the way to help people. And hire some good coaches as the people are here today.
那这里我提两点，首先就是因为对于高管来说，要花时间，就是说，比如说去学习教练技能是非常的难的，因为要花很多的时间和精力。但最主要的原因是，如果没有觉得，他们没有觉得我感到好像遭遇了什么痛苦，没有觉得这个紧迫性的话，他可能就没有那么多强烈的愿望去觉得要从这个角度来提升自己。那第二个呢，就是作为领导者，这件事情本身就已经很难了，就是我不建议说，高管他们自己去做就是个教练，或者去学习这个教练技能。这个事情呢，其实我们可以交给专业的教练去做，由专业的教练，因为专业的教练他去负责，就是帮别人更多开拓他们的视野，就是展开他们的思维。那我是建议的话，大家就是领导者呢，就是专注领导这件事情，因为这个本身就很难。
Thank you for your question, Michelle. Yeah. Have we got more questions? I can do this all day. So
perhaps I have a question from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, is that okay? So Arvid, really share your opinion about, well, there needs to be pain and urgency for people to change, at least to make an effort. But for you, when will you actually work with someone, and when do you think, well, it might not be their time or it might not be our time to work together? What's your criteria?
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Stephen. Could you repeat your questions?
Yeah, so basically I'm wondering, when will someone be suitable for coaching with Arvid together? Even though if there is already a pain and an urgency, what other criteria are there for Arvid to either work or not work together?
Yeah, thank you very much. 那我们这里呢，我们大概是今天的最后一个问题，考虑到时间问题。这个问题呢就是当一个领导者他感到可能自己有遇到一些痛苦的事情，或者是觉得紧迫性需要去找一个教练的时候，那这个就是什么样的时机是合适的？那你作为教练的话，你会就是有个怎么样的标准去做不做，就是接受不接受这个教练工作？
So thank you, Stefan, for that question. It's something that I could do an entire masterclass on separately, but basically to explain you, there is a book made by my colleague Martin Uplow on the 9 factors that you have to check in an intake. But let me give you 2 important ones. The first is internal attribution. So besides pain and urgency, I want the leader to understand that he or she is the problem and that they are the only ones to change. If that is not in their system, then there's no way I'm going to work with them. This internal attribution is how we call it psychologically. Secondly, I'm trying to pick what's the most important one. I find I try to find if they are ready to go on a relationship with me in that procedure. So are they willing to trust and be vulnerable? And I do that with my questioning, going more in deep in an intake and try to ask unexpected questions that are extremely vulnerable by linking things to their childhood, for example. And if they are able to deal with that, that would be my if you would get a quick fix, those would be the two, if that makes sense.
那这里呢，就是我的一个伙伴叫 Martin April， 他呢写过一本书，然后这里书里提到就是有9个要素，就是你如果去决定接受这份教练工作的话，首先第一个就是你要确定这个人他是否确定是他的内在的一个问题，是这个人他确实出现了一个问题，然后他确实是要去做一个行为上的变化，一定要是他自己本人需要有这个意愿出现了进行他行为上的一个变化，你才可以考虑。然后第二个呢，就是因为要跟对方建立联系，那要确保对方就是跟你之间建立一个信任关系，同时对方能够从内心去真正愿意去展现他的脆弱，因为在你们对话的深入过程当中，你们可能去聊得更深入，可能会触及到一些敏感的话题，可能会需要对方去展露更多的内心，可能更多的脆弱，那要确保对方能够接受这一点。
I hope that answers your question, Stefan. And there is a lot of scientific research on when therapy in general in medical situations, in psychological situations helps. And based on that research, we know that there are 9 factors to see if you would be able to help other people. So I can share that afterwards, link with me and I'll share it with you. So that would be my answer for now.
And please also share with me. Please also share the link with me. I'll share it with the audience.
Yeah, but it's in Dutch, Icy. So I'll try to see if I have time to translate it, but it's an entire book. So I'll try to see if I can translate just the 9 factors in English, and then I will send it to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. 那刚刚我们是阿伟的，他提到了就是9个要点，然后刚刚呢，他主要提了就是2个，其中的2个就是你能不能通过就是这2个因素，你能不能去做这份就是教练的工作，去能够与这个领导者共事。Okay, thank you, Arvid. I think due to the time constraints, I think that's all for the Q&A. And thank you very much. Thank you again for your wonderful presentation. And
thank you so much for you and Fisher for organizing and translating and arranging all of this. It was my pleasure and honor. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you once again for your support of the EMCC China, and hope we can still continue our collaboration in the future.
Looking forward.
Thank you very much. 那非常感谢我们 Arvid 先生今天非常精彩的演讲。Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay. Wait a moment, please. .那大家如果就是对于 Arvid 先生刚才演讲，如果大家就是想获取相关的这个资料 PPT， 包括可能 Arvid 先生今天提到了一些书的还有播客的链接，然后大家可以扫这个下方的2维码联系我们的工作人员领取。那本场讲座呢，大家可能有的没有就是看完全场，然后我们会有回放，大家也可以就是向我们的工作人员咨询，就是本场的回放。那在这里呢，我们也进行一下这个下期的直播预告。下期的直播预告是由来自印度的 Vijay 女士，她给我们带来的话题是就领导者的成功密码，就如何拥有教练心态的领导力。时间是在3月6号的下午2点到3点。那感兴趣的朋友可以扫下方的2维码，然后报名加入我们。 在这里我们最后也预告一下，就是我们即将在3月的11号、12号、13号连续3天晚上的7点开始进行1个半小时的直播。那这个直播呢，是我们围绕导师型父母这个话题，然后帮助各位家长去了解如何停止对孩子的内耗，帮助孩子少走弯路。那这3天的进阶式学习呢，我们就是分别包括那11号，就是有些我们家长可能还没有意识到自己的孩子在成长中踩了雷区，那我们可以就是帮助你意识到，去发现孩子正在走弯路，但是你之前是全然不知，那我们帮助你意识到这个问题，然后帮助孩子去快速提升，就是他的学习成绩。那12号第2天的时候呢，我们会去针对孩子的不同成长阶段，帮助你去了解去如何调整你的教育策略。那第3天，作为父母呢，我们也会向你分享，就是如何让你的孩子变得优秀的秘籍，那让你成为能够萃取育儿基因的智慧。那本次直播的讲师呢是蒙科中国区总裁以及组织隐性技能管理全球智库秘书长，欧洲导师与教练协会 EMCC 中国区的负责人，以及美国国际职业导师协会的理事林道江先生。对本次直播感兴趣的朋友，可以扫下方的2维码预约。那欢迎各位父母还有家长，然后加入我们。好，以上就是今天分享的全部内容。非常感谢大家的参与和观看。那如果进一步有什么问题的话，可以就是联系我们的工作人员，我们会进一步跟大家解答。好，今天的直播就到这里，非常感谢大家的参与，我们下期再见。Arvid.
Yeah.
That's all for today's sharing. Thank you for being here with us. It's
Thank you so much.
Really a great